Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about some things I've shared on my social media profile over the last couple of weeks. I'm just going to pull out some of the more interesting quotes and thoughts I shared and make a lesson out of it today. And again, if you guys don't follow me on social media, definitely get on LinkedIn and find me there. And if you don't have a LinkedIn account, I'm telling you, unless you're about to retire, quit working, you need a LinkedIn account and profile. Not to share what you had for dinner, because it's really not that kind of site, but so you can network for your future. Connect with people you've worked with recently in the past, people you meet, people you might want to work with in the future. And it's also, LinkedIn's a great resource for growth and development. And it's also a place for people like me to help people who want to grow and develop. And again, there's all kind of information out there from all different types of people in all different fields. So I'm just going to share with you some thoughts. I'm gonna go back through my history here from the last couple of weeks, pull out some quotes and talk about them and elaborate on them. I'm going to say more than what I just shared on the actual LinkedIn post. So let's get started. So I shared a post a couple weeks back, and it was basically my quote. And the quote I shared says, "Do you go to work to get a check or to get ahead? Mindset matters." Think about that. Do you go to work to get a check or to get ahead? Because what that says about you, it's all about your mindset. I remember, I heard it many times back when I was working in the manufacturing plants. I'm just here to get a check. And the next thing I saw was I witnessed a person who made the remark, provide the evidence to support their belief. They did the minimum required to keep their job. And most of the time that was not a very good job. And they always got a check until they didn't. But I never saw these people getting ahead. I never saw anybody in my life who made it perfectly clear that they were there just to get a check. And I don't care if they were frontline entry-level people. I don't care if they were in the engineering, support groups, quality, leadership, management, upper management, top management. I've heard people at all levels who make it obvious through their words and actions that they're just there to get a check. But I've never saw any of those people getting ahead. And why is that? It's because those people with that mindset were only focused on getting by. That's not a great way to lead your life, is on getting by. But those who go to work to get ahead do more than is required before it's required. And they do things better than required. They see and do things differently. They have a completely different mindset. Again, they ain't there just to get a check or to get paid. They're there. They are there to get ahead. They are not working for the boss or for the company. It's obvious these folks, these hard charging people, they working for themselves. They may not be working in a company they own, but I promise you they go to work every day for themselves. And the job they do matters to them. They know just trying to get by doesn't only make the boss look bad, it makes them look bad. So if you haven't read my book, Blue Collar Leadership Leading from the Front Lines, you need to dive into that book, because those chapters in that book, 30 chapters, 3 pages each, Each one of them full of gold. Going to help that book's going to help you get ahead. I didn't write it to help people who are trying to get by. People who are trying to get by, they're never going to read that book or any other book like it because they're just trying to get a check. They're just trying to get paid. They ain't trying to get ahead. But I wrote that book to help those on the front lines get ahead at work and in life. But those principles, they actually apply to anyone at any level in any industry. So you just think about that when you're reflecting back, you're thinking about yourself. Ask yourself, why do you go to work? Do you go to work really to get ahead or to get by? I mean, I've been sitting at the table when people say that. I'm just here to get a check. I've heard people say that to the boss. I can't comprehend it, but it's pretty common out there. So now let's shift and talk about another post I wrote, and it was based on a quote from Lieutenant General George Flynn. I believe, if I remember right, Lieutenant General George Flynn. I believe he was in the Marine Corps, and he says culture equals values plus behavior. Culture equals values plus behavior. So the last little lesson I taught you was about people who trying to just get by, people who are working just to get a check. But now I'm kind of talking about the leaders. Struggling to find good people to add to your team. Are you struggling to find good people to add to your team? And I'm talking to you now as if you are a leader. Talking to the people who are the bosses, formal authority leaders. Do you struggle to find good people to add to your team? And let me just say, as I'm sharing these posts, you can tell on my LinkedIn, I write posts about personal growth, personal development. I write posts about leadership development, dealing with change, cultural transformation, because ultimately at the end of the day, everything I write about is all about how to grow and increase your influence intentionally. And the principles are all the same, but there's a different context to them because it depends who are you and where are you and what are you trying to accomplish. But again, this one's about culture. So are you struggling to find good people to add to your team? And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't have to be that way. But in many organizations, you may work in one where it's hard to find good people. Maybe you're not the boss, but you can tell by your teammates and some of the new people they're bringing in that our organization, we just can't find good people. But in today's tight labor market, many leaders are searching for good people, while a few leaders are attracting great people. And I'm pretty sure you're like me. If you had a choice, you want to work with a leader who's attracting great people. But again, as I often say, for you to be attractive to that type of leader, you got to lead yourself well. You got to be a high impact individual. You got to be a high impact team player. Some cultures repel good and great people, while other cultures attract and retain great people. And those attracting and retaining great people are considered sought after employers of choice. However, many leaders aren't willing to intentionally pay the price to become a sought after employer of choice. And you may be working in one of those companies now or may have worked in one of those companies in the past. Those organizations are not places many people want to work. And many leaders aren't willing to intentionally pay the price to become a sought after employer of choice. So guess what? They end up automatically paying the higher price of constantly and endlessly searching for good people, as they repeat a never-ending cycle of recruiting, onboarding, training as they deal with related safety, quality, productivity, morale, and lack of experience issues. That costs a lot of money. So you're going to pay the price if you develop people, it costs money and time to invest in the development of people to become a sought after employer of choice. But you pay a higher price if you don't. But see, part of the problem is when an organization grows and develops people, it's very easy to see how much it costs. We put 10 people in a room for 2 hours. We know how much that costs if we pay them. If we buy them books, we know how much it costs. If we pay a speaker to bring them in, we know how much it costs. I mean, if we pay a speaker and pay to bring in a speaker, we know how much it costs. It's very easy to see how much it costs to develop people. There's usually some checks being written for it, so it's easy to keep track of it. Super easy to see it. But when you don't grow and develop people, it's a little bit harder. It's harder to know how much it costs to have to retrain people, how much it costs for productivity to be disrupted when we're losing people and retraining people and then losing people again and retraining people, and quality's up and down because of that. Safety issues, stress, frustration. It's hard to see how much all that costs, but I'm here to tell you, I promise you it costs more than growing and developing the people. But again, I'm also here to tell you it's hard to measure it. But high impact leaders, they don't have to measure it. They just know. And also, they're not growing and developing people to save money. They're doing it because they value people. But what would change if your organization was truly the sought after employer of choice in your industry, in your area of operations? So it doesn't matter. When I'm asking you this question, it doesn't matter who you are, what level you're at. Think about it. This question, though, what would change if your organization was truly the sought after employer of choice in your industry, in your area of operations? Would you personally, again, doesn't matter what level you're at, what your job is, but if your organization was a sought after employer of choice, meaning great people are lined up to get in, great people want to stay, so they do stay. There's not a lot of turnover. And when you replace someone because they retire or maybe they do move on, you got top talent waiting to get in the door. So you're bringing in a high performance team member. If your organization was that, would you experience more or less frustration working in that organization compared to one that's got a lot of turnover? Bad bosses, people are not being developed. It's just something to think about. But every person in an organization plays a big role in the developing the culture of that organization. If you get better, the culture in your organization is going to get better. Doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. But if you're a formal authority leader, or you can grow and develop enough influence that you can influence other people to start getting better, doesn't matter what your job is. If you can do that, you're going to be improving the culture significantly. A lot of people don't do anything like that. They just go to work and they go home. Remember, they're just trying to get by. They're not trying to get ahead. They ain't even worried about trying to get the company to get ahead compared to the competition. They're not even worried about getting ahead themselves, a lot of people. So another quote I shared from Margaret Fuller. She says, "Today a reader, tomorrow a leader." Today a reader, tomorrow a leader. And that's powerful. And if you know my story and you've been listening to my podcast very long, you know I believe in that one right there. 2008, I had never read or heard anything like the content I write about and talk about today. 2008, I started reading every day. So this year, 2022, this is going to be 14 years that I've been reading every day. Literally every day. Not some days. Every day. It doesn't mean I read an entire book. But I read every day, some amount. It may only be a paragraph or two. Some days. Some days it may be an entire book. But my goal for me personally is to just read at least one paragraph a day. That's so easy. I can usually do that in less than 30 seconds. So when I know when I'm going to do my daily reading, in my mind, all I have to do is 30 seconds. On average, whatever it might be. It's a paragraph. That's all I have to do. And so I don't mind if I'm super busy or I'm tired, it's late at night and I haven't done my reading yet. It's real easy to open it up and say, okay, if I open a book or it's a digital book, it's real easy to do because I know I don't have but about a 30-second commitment at most. But what I always find out is hardly ever do I only read one paragraph. But I need that commitment and that goal to get me to the book. And when I read the one paragraph, it's usually pretty easy to read another one and another one and another one. And I may read a page or two or a couple of pages, multiple pages, or I might read a chapter. Who knows? There's been a lot of times that I've read for 30 minutes when I went there to read for 30 seconds. So I encourage you, think about this quote. Today a reader, tomorrow a leader. Give yourself a goal of reading at least a paragraph a day, something related to personal growth and leadership development every day. It's pretty powerful. Don't underestimate the power of reading small amounts daily. And if you don't like to read anyway. I don't like to read either. But I figured out I like to learn more than I hate to read. So I read every day. And you can listen to audio like this podcast. That counts. Listen to 30 seconds of audio every day. If you don't want to read 30 seconds every day, make a commitment like that. If you push play on a podcast and all you got to do is listen to 30 seconds, odds are you're probably going to listen to a little more. But if you're reading quality content and attempting to apply what you're learning, the transformation in your life can be amazing. And I know, again, I've been doing it. I don't ever teach you stuff and share stuff with you that I don't do in my life, that I haven't applied in my life, that I haven't validated. That's why I'm so passionate about it. It's transformed my life. I know a lot of other people who I've been able to motivate and inspire to do this that I've known for years that have transformed their life personally and professionally in really, really big ways. So now I want to shift and talk to you, kind of mixing it up today. I talked to you about a personal quote. About personal growth and development. Talk to you a little bit about culture and as a leader at an upper level. Then I went right back to talking about personal development, about reading. And again, that doesn't matter what level you're at. Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter where you live. You can do that. Small amounts over time add up tremendously. I can't even imagine how tall, if I could stack all the books I've ever read, if I could stack them in one stack, how tall it would be. It'd be amazing. Probably blow my mind. I couldn't imagine that I've read all that content in 14 years. So now I'm gonna leave. Probably this is gonna be my last thought for today, and I'm gonna leave you with a quote about sales. I know a lot of people who listen to me are in sales, or you may be on a team that has sales team members. A lot of people don't even know that I have a sales book. It's all about how to sell with character. It's called Who's Buying You? Until you sell yourself, you won't sell much, is the subtitle. But in there, I share a quote from a guy a lot of people follow. He's one of the top sales gurus. He's got books and all kinds of other things. And I think his most popular book is the Little Red Sales Book or something like that. And his name is Jeffrey Gitomer. He has a quote, though. He says, "The most powerful person on your sales team is your customer." The most powerful person on your sales team is your customer. That's pretty powerful right there. So I'm gonna add some thoughts to it. You may be in sales or might be one day. Or maybe you want to help introduce your team, your leaders to my Who's Buying You sales book. They can do book studies on it, help the sales team get better. When the sales team gets better, everybody's life gets better because you sell more products. You may be thinking, oh, but them got to work overtime. Well, I'd rather work overtime instead of go out of business, not have a job. That's part of the growth. But being able to grow effectively is why we need to do growth and development with the people, because we want to be in a growing business, and that creates a lot of problems. But so does being in a business that's dying. And I'd rather have the problems related to growing instead of dying. But let's go back to that quote. The most powerful person on your sales team is your customer. Your customer will provide positive or negative word of mouth advertisement about you and or your product or your service for years. If you've been listening to me long enough, you know I always talk about everybody in your company as a brand ambassador. See, this is a principle. Jeffrey Gitomer's talking about the same principle relative to selling that I'm talking about relative to attracting people. Because I say everyone in your organization is going to provide the organization with positive or negative word of mouth advertisement for years. And whatever the people are saying is going to determine who wants to work there, how many people are attracted there, the quality of people who are trying to get a job there. But related to sales, it's the same way, but we're talking about your customers, not your team members or your employees. But your customer will provide positive or negative word of mouth advertisement about you and or your product or service for years. Your customers will talk to others about their experience. And what they say can make or break you. And you may not be in sales, you may be in service. Rhea and I spoke to Altus Pest Control out in Austin a couple months back. And the people doing the service, wherever you live, if you've had people come in and do provide pest control service, they come in, spray your house for bugs, that sort of thing, keep you from having bugs, or any bugs show up, it kills them. Those people may not be the salesperson. You may have just looked up on your phone, or somebody may have referred you. I don't know how you might have picked your pest control service, but let's say you got pest control service. The person who comes to actually provide the service is not the salesperson. They're just there to provide the service. But how they interact with you is going to determine a lot about you as a customer, about what you have to say about that company. So if you're a leader of an organization and you've got people anybody in your company who interacts with the public, they're 100% on your sales team. But then also you think about everybody inside of your company. Maybe they don't interact with the public, but they're producing parts or components. And they've got a lot to do with the quality. So when the parts or the components get out to the public has to deal with them. If the customer has to deal with poor quality, they're going to be giving you some bad word of mouth advertisement. So you can start to see how when you really understand how important the customer is, you start to realize everybody on your team is in sales and customer service. But if you just think like managers of people do, the only people I need to teach this stuff to are the sales people, well, you're going to be missing out on a whole lot, and you're going to get a whole lot of bad word of mouth advertisement. Your customers will talk to others about their experience, and what they say can make you or break you. And you can't control what they think about the product or service you are selling. You can't control what they think about the product or service that you're selling if you are in sales. That's up to the design, engineering, and the manufacturing team. However, though, you can influence what they're saying about you. You can't buy authentic word of mouth advertisement, but you can create it. And as an individual, that's what you're trying to create. See, everybody's in sales. You may not officially have a sales job, but I promise you every day you're selling you. That's what you get paid for every day when you go to work. No matter what your job is, you're getting paid for who you are. When you go try to get a job or promotion, guess what you're trying to sell? You. And just like all of my books are full of principles that apply to everybody everywhere. Doesn't matter. If I owned a company and I had a lot of team members, it don't matter what kind of company it is, it doesn't matter. I would teach people what's in my sales book. Think about the title of that sales book again. Who's buying you? Until you sell yourself, you won't sell much. I wrote it for people who are formal, professional salespeople. But again, these principles apply to everybody in any position because ultimately it's how to sell with character, how to sell yourself with character. In the book, I give a lot of examples related to literally selling products and services. And I share stories about people who have sold me products and services. Some people got it right, some people got it wrong. So I share a lot of those stories and I talk about it from a character standpoint, from a character frame of reference. And you'll be able to relate to it as well. So I got a few more minutes. I want to throw in one more quote for you today. Something to think about. High impact leaders know it costs much less to grow and develop the leaders already in their organization than it does to constantly replace the people who leave because of those leaders. You think about that. High impact leaders know it costs much less to grow and develop the leaders already in their organization than it does to constantly replace the people who are leaving because of those poorly developed leaders if they're not training them. So see, many leaders won't intentionally invest time and money developing the people. Kind of talked about that earlier related to culture. So they must constantly invest time and money recruiting, training, and replacing people, as I mentioned. But either way, there's a price to pay. However, the return on investment on developing the people already on your team is much greater than the return on investment on replacing people who constantly leave because they don't want to work with the people who stay. Paying the price for workforce development and leadership development is an investment with the potential for a high return. Few leaders, though, are going to make that choice. Most of them, they're going to pay the price for high turnover and lack of employee engagement. And that's a price. That's a cost with little, if any, return. And many leaders make that choice. Unfortunately, what's common sense isn't always common practice. So think about it. Which company would you rather work at? The one constantly developing people or the one constantly replacing people? Which one do you work at? If you're a leader of people formally, what kind of leader are you? Are you constantly developing people or are you just constantly replacing people? But the answer is obvious to anyone, even the leaders who aren't doing what should be done. Everyone would rather work in an organization with leaders who are developing the workforce and who are developing the leaders. So kind of bounced around today on quite a few different subjects. Hope you found some value in these. Again, I try to teach, even though I write things specifically for specific people in specific roles and sometimes even specific industries. When I teach it and I talk about it, I teach it in a way that you can understand how everything I teach applies to everybody because I'm talking about character. It's always about character development. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.